And we are back in our third chapter of this show that we named Double Antidote. I'm Eva Saralanda, and over here is Christopher Gergen. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Good to be back.
Good to be back in this third chapter. People is having a lot of expectative, is waiting for this. This is going to be our third week on air.
Mhm.
And you got things to tell us about your last trip because you be out of Las Vegas the last week. What you been doing, Christopher?
So I went up to visit with a client on election night, and we won. We won our election, and so we're on to the next one. So we won by a 2-1 margin. There was 3 candidates in the race, and the closest candidate to our candidate was beaten by 2-1. So we're definitely happy with that. I'm looking forward to a big win in November.
In November. So your candidate is a lady, is a woman.
Yes.
Is a woman. That's very good. That's very good because that's what people sometimes believe that there is not. I don't think it's like that. I don't believe that kind of thing. I believe about capacity of the people. I know genders,
Mhm.
but me as a woman, I'm so happy that some women's being winning this race, and it's very important. It's very important because who better than women know the necessities that has our kids, are what the cost of the food. Even if the husband is most of the time the ones who provide more, the wife is the one who made a little bit of economy over there. So I believe it's very good. I believe it's very good.
In that race, there was 2 women and a man, and the man
okay.
is the one that got eliminated. So now there's 2 ladies in the race, in the final race in the general election. And
That's very good. And the woman, your candidate is a conservative woman, I believe.
very much, yes.
So that's very good. That's very good because they believe now with all these Christians believe that only women from the left can be in certain positions. And well, I'm so happy. Congratulations, Christopher, for that because
Thank you.
when your candidates are winning, you're winning too.
That's exactly right.
Right? So that's very good. Or when you're winning, they're winning. Whatever you want to see it. I'm so happy. So
absolutely.
happy for you. So in this third episode that we are doing today, we're gonna talk about the second chapter of your book.
Mm-hmm.
And being having over here some papers about it. Can you talk to us, made a summary about the chapter number 2, and then we go in and a few questions for you, so we go more in detail.
So chapter 2 is probably one of the most important chapters in the entire book. As far as running a campaign, chapter 2 discusses the first phase. Every campaign, Eva, has 5 phases, 5 distinct phases. And chapter 2 discusses the first of those phases, which is called the pre-campaign analysis and setup. And this is all of the things that you need to do before you actually get into the race. And the reason that it is the most important, or one of the most important chapters in the book, and why it is arguably the most important phase of a campaign, is because most candidates who lose completely skip this. And it becomes the reason that they lose, because they end up trying to go win the heavyweight championship, and they don't spend a day in the gym. They do no preparation. They don't do anything. They just show up for the fight, and then when they lose, they wonder why.
In putting another, you always said something that is, and I believe is totally true. When you say a campaign, a candidate, a race, a campaign race is is marketing, is selling.
Mhm.
So in the me as a person who understands the publicity, the propaganda, the marketing, we know that when we have to kick out or put it on the market, actually not kick out, put it on the market some product, we have to do the study of marketing study to see what's the reaction of the people, what they think. Even they can give us an idea with no knowing what they're doing.
Right.
They say, what's your favorite color for, and we was talking before about chocolate, for example. What's your favorite color, or which color of or what paper of color do you like better for a chocolate? What you gonna buy better?
Mhm.
What you gonna shop and they say purple or red or yellow, whatever, and then you have an idea of, oh, this is how the people get attracted about the chocolate, this color. So sometimes we don't make that study and we throw our product and we realize that we're not selling because probably somebody didn't make homework that needs to start making this kind of research.
Yeah, so a lot of candidates just want to be right. They don't want to win. They just want to have a platform to go be right. And so they spend 6 to 8 months out there on the trail being right, and they end up losing their race. See, because being right doesn't make a difference when it comes to the results on election night. Because if that was the case, then Democrats would never win because they're almost never right on any of the issues.
Yeah.
And so we can be right or we can win. Right. So you have to make a choice as a candidate in the pre-campaign analysis and setup. What you're doing is you're looking at all of the big things. What are the voters interested in? The voters don't care what you're interested in. The voters don't care about what issues are important to the candidate. They care about what issues are important to them. And if you are as a candidate are talking about issues that are not important to the voting base, you're never going to be able to connect with them. You're never going to be able to sell yourself as a candidate, and specifically the one that they should vote for. And then you look at budgeting. How much is this going to cost? How much is it going to cost to set this up? How much money are we going to have to raise? Who are we going to have to contact to get that done? Who are the players that we need on the field? Who are the people that we need involved in this campaign? Who do we have access to? Who do we not have access to? Do we know anybody that can reach out to those people that we don't have access to? All of these questions, in addition to, is this race even winnable? Who likes to play a game that they can't win at? That's not a game. It's boring. Like, why would you want to do that? It's impossible.
Well, some politics, they don't care because sometimes they don't. It's not seen as a product in this case, right? Because when it's a product, you get a mortgage or you spend all whatever you've been saving in order to run a new business, and you're risking. But some candidate with no principles or no enough moral, or I don't know, they don't care because it's somebody else's money.
Well, that's the thing is it is inherently immoral to run a race that you can't win, or that is not winnable, because you are asking people, donors, to give their hard-earned money to a campaign or to a cause where it's going to be completely wasted, and those resources, which are not infinite, like there's only a certain amount of money, and you're going to waste it in an effort that is just not winnable. It's not viable. And so before you even declare, all of these things have to happen in the pre-campaign analysis and setup. And that is why phase one, pre-campaign analysis and setup, is the most, I would argue it is the most important phase out of all 5 phases. It's just, you got to do it. And the reason, and I'll say it again, I said it earlier in the show, is that the reason that most candidates fail is because they completely skip this step. And they just go in, they just launch their campaign, and then they try to figure it out on the way. And that is a pathway 99 out of 100 times, that is the pathway to failure.
But in this book too, in the first segment of this chapter, you talk about the first question. The first, what is the first phase you give it to? For example, somebody call you. What is the first things you do? For example, hey, Christopher Gergen, I'm in Orlando, and well, and my family, my friends, everybody said to me that I'm going to be a great candidate if I run, that they share my values, or I'm more a person more extroverted, so I can put the ideas and the people have yada yada. What is the first things you ask to the people when they call you, when they reach you?
Why do you want to run for office?
Why do you want to run for office?
Why? I want to know why. Because if you don't know why, and if you don't have a compelling why, if why is your ego, if why is your friends told you to, if your why is, well, the party chairman came to me or a bunch of influential people came to me and said that I should get in to this race. All those are the wrong reasons why. They're all the wrong reasons why. Those aren't good reasons to get into a race. If you want, so the question is, why do you want to run for elected office? It should be to serve my community, because no one else has stepped up yet in this race that I believe can represent the people better than I could. That's a good, compelling why. Mm-hmm. And understanding why, it really, when you get attacked, it gives you strength. It gives you a strength that other candidates don't have, because you know why you're here. Instead of not knowing why you're here, and all of a sudden you're taking all of this incoming fire, all of these people are saying things to you, saying things about you, making up lies about you, or maybe telling the truth about some missteps that you've had in your past. You know, everybody's had issues and different things that have happened in their life that, you know, that they would rather the whole world not know, right? And when those things come up, if you don't have a compelling why, you're going to get crushed by those things. Yeah. And you've got to be running for the right reasons. And so I personally don't work with clients that aren't running for the right reasons. A lot of consultants may. We don't take clients like that at my firm, but
it's too probably because Christopher, you are a professional in this, and the people who are looking for you for your service is people who probably don't know you personally. They just call you as a consultant, as a company who can help them. But there is so many candidates than friends say, hey, why you don't run? I do your I'm gonna manage your campaign.
Right.
So do you see that cases that
all the time.
Most of the time probably, right? The people
all the time.
And then they end like okay, you don't know what you're doing, you put me in this situation, you said that you're gonna run my campaign, so it's time to call a professional.
Right.
And sometimes when they call a professional, it's probably a little bit late to fix all the damage. I don't say it's impossible, but it's gonna be harder for probably you as a consultant fix what they didn't do right since the beginning. That's why it's very important to have a consultant in this.
So phase one is the the pre-campaign and setup. Phase two, which we're going to talk about in another episode, is launching your campaign, how to launch it successfully, to give yourself the best chances for success. But there's in between phase two and phase three, there's this space. I call it the pit of despair. It's where your campaign falls into like this deep, dark pit, and you never come out of it. And that's where campaigns go to die. And that's usually where people like me get phone calls. Hey, Chris, we've launched this campaign. We're having difficulties. Can you come in? Can you save it? Can you help? Right. And unfortunately, if they didn't do phase one right and they didn't do phase two right, and now they're behind in fundraising, they've already been introduced to the voters and dismissed by the voters. The media has already looked at them and dismissed them. And now they can't raise money. They're in this deep, dark pit. And there's typically there's no way to save it if you get to that point. That's why these first two phases, phase one and phase two, are and especially phase one, is absolutely paramount that you do this properly.
Yeah, it is what it is, right? If people want to win, they have to make it right. Since the beginning, make everything easy. The work for everybody made easier, even for the volunteers.
Without a doubt.
You know, because they really work hard when they are voluntary. Yes, and they're very compromised with the campaign, with their sharing the same belief that the candidates. They really work hard.
In the summer, they're out in 105-degree weather knocking on doors. In the winter, they're out in the rain and the snow sometimes, knocking on doors. I mean, the volunteers, you can make their lives a lot more difficult if you don't do things right on the front end.
Right. Yeah. And now I got another question for you. First, I would love you to explain what SWOT means, SWOT. And the question is, can you explain the SWOT analysis in the context of political campaign and provide example of strengths and can they may face?
So a SWOT analysis is something that is used in business a lot. SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, right? So typically, strengths and weaknesses are really introspective. So it's talking about what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, right? And based on those strengths and weaknesses, what opportunities are provided me with those things, and what could be threats. So if one of my weaknesses is, let's just say, one of my weaknesses is I'm not good with remembering numbers. Okay, let's just say that was one of my weaknesses. Okay, a corresponding threat to that is when you're under pressure and you're being asked questions on public policy and you can't remember the numbers, you could look stupid, right? So that could be a threat, is that you're not going to be able to retain and be able to interact with both the media and the voters in a way that,
especially the media,
oh yeah, because they ask things in a certain way. And if you don't understand how they work and how they ask, then you could be in trouble. So a SWOT analysis is something that you should not only do on yourself, which I do on all of my clients, but you also do on all of the opponents. All of your opponents have strengths, right? All of your opponents have weaknesses. All of your opponents have certain opportunities against you. Every one of your opponents have certain threats that you pose to them. And so it's important to do a SWOT analysis, which is something that you do, again, in the pre-campaign analysis. Before you even decide to run, like to make that announcement, you've got to do all of these things. Because if you don't do it and then you try to figure it out later, your opponent has probably already hit you. Your opponent has probably already attacked you. And now you're under pressure. Now you're taking hits. Now you're taking all these things. And it becomes impossible.
I mean, if your opponent has a very good consultant too, they're going to be seeing what your weeks over there. How can they put you in stress in order to disconcentrate? Or
in 2020, I'll give you an example of something that I did in a governor's race. My client was the underdog, severe underdog, right? Nobody gave him a chance to get even anywhere close to winning. And they figured he might finish in the top 10. And the front runner was a guy who was very well funded, and was up to that point that I came around. He was very well respected. People didn't really attack him. And so I just randomly attacked him. And I saw that he lost his mind. He could not take criticism. And I was like, oh, that is a godsend. And so I constantly criticized him, and it threw him off of his rhythm. And he never could recover from it. He'd never been hit before. And so we were dealing with an opponent that had never been punched in the face. And so what do you think I did for 6 straight months? I punched him in the face, figuratively speaking, all the time, every single day. I made it my mission in life as my client's consultant to make sure that his opponent had a worse day today than he did yesterday. And I wanted to demoralize my opponent. That's exactly what we did. And so it's very, very important that you understand what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what your opportunities are, what your threats are, because your opponent, if they have someone like me on their team, they are going to find out what your weaknesses are. They're going to find out what threatens you, and they're going to use it.
Yeah, that is totally true. We have to, in the same way that you made a market before you go, you study and do your same research for the other candidates. Absolutely. To see what are the.
Yeah, if you're selling chocolate, like to your point earlier with the example of the chocolate, if you're going to start a chocolate company, let's see, there's Lind, there's Hershey's, there's Dove, there's 100 different, so you have to do an analysis on all of these. Where's your competitive advantage? If you're going to start what makes you think you can win in the chocolate business? Okay. What is your competitive advantage in this campaign? All of that has to be determined in your pre-campaign analysis and setup. If you don't understand what your competitive advantage is, where you can tactically beat your opponent, you're going to lose. It's very simple.
It's very simple. It's very simple. Yeah, it is. It's even a common sense is something, but there is, again, right? There is a lot of people who say, "Hey, I will help you," but they're not professionals, and they make the candidates suffer a lot. Everybody suffers. The volunteers suffer. The people who has a desire that you win an election are suffering too because they cannot help because they have
Right.
the wrong consultant and no. They don't have to invent anything. The things are there. The opening is there, and that is a physical things, and you're hitting every day, and you know where are their things. Of course, never. I believe that never. You can put never. Some persons may questions that are made them feel uncomfortable, but never under defamations or lies or
sure.
things like that. We always, I believe, always has to keep a line of on
Yeah.
that because they make that
Of course. Yeah, don't lie.
You know what
You
I
don't
mean?
have to lie.
You don't
just
have
tell
to
the
lie.
truth.
Just tell the truth. You don't
Yeah,
have to
just
lie
tell the truth.
or trying because you know what? The life never gets sustained on time.
Yeah.
So
I told this.
you've been attacked a lot as a
Oh,
consultant, a lot,
absolutely.
and every time you just as what you say, oh, let it go. I don't care. I don't care. And then 3-4 months, when you win or whatever, they say, oh, actually, everything what we've been saying about him is a lie. So
Yep.
why you been doing that? Wasting time, and time is money.
Right.
They spend money creating narrative and right.
Yep.
So my other question for you is how the voters segments definitions aid candidates in shaping their campaign strategy.
Okay, so let's think about this in terms of business. There are only three types of customers, right? People that always buy your product, people that will never buy your product, even if you gave it to them for free, and people that could be persuaded to buy your product. Okay, so understanding that there are people that will always vote for you, people who will never vote for you, and people who could be persuaded to vote for you.
And you have to convince a little bit.
Yeah, you have to convince them.
People.
It's called earning their vote. You have to earn their vote, right? They're in this business that they're called persuadables. They can be persuaded to vote for you
in a good campaign. Yeah.
Right. So how do you talk to, if I'm asking you out there in YouTube land, what do you say to people who always vote for you? What does that messaging look like? What do you say to people who would never vote for you? What do you say to them? I'll give you a hint. You don't say anything to them because they wouldn't buy anything from you anyway. And then what do you say to persuadables? To persuade them to earn their vote. What's your narrative? What does that look like? Have you put together your 6 pieces of a narrative, which is something that we'll go over in another episode, hopefully. Like, have you got a cohesive message? What's your rationale? What's your story? What's all of that? How does all that, how does all that get packaged to talk to these 3 different voting groups? And then there's 7, and we're not going to go through all 7. Just read the book. It's fantastic. Win, The Candidate's Guide to Winning Back America. You can get it at Amazon or Barnes & Noble or whatever you like to buy your books. There's 7 different voter segments that span from right to left, or left to right, depending on if you're a liberal. But the 3 major groups are people who always buy, people who never buy, and people who can be persuaded to buy. And if you don't identify how many people are in each of those groups, you'll never be able to determine whether or not you can win the race. So if there's 100 voters, 60 of them will never buy what you're buying or what you're selling, you're screwed. If there's more than half, people will never vote for you. Why are you even in this race?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So if there's 30 people who will never buy, 30 people who will always buy, that leaves you 40 people who could be persuaded to buy. Now we got a race. Now we got something that we can do.
We were discussing before about this because I said to you, sometime when a state, for example, is one color, one side,
Mhm.
always, and you want to run as a candidate, and but they always been that way. And I said to you, I believe that is a good opportunity for go with new ideas. And you say no, because if they always been voting, it's not like it's not possible, but they always is because they're comfortable with that way to be. So why you want to be running in something that they are in their comfort zone, and it's going to be super super hard to do it.
Right.
Because not because I don't like how that person is or thing or what is doing, that don't means the rest of the people don't like it. The rest of the people like it. So
I guess
it's a
some
waste of money.
I guess some people like high property taxes. Some people like, the transgender stuff. Some people like bums hanging out on the streets and homelessness and drug addiction. Some people like all that stuff, apparently, in California, Oregon, Washington, New York, New Jersey. I guess they really like that stuff there. Places like Nevada, we don't really like that here. Florida, they don't really like that there. Texas, not really. Pretty much anywhere in the South, they don't really like that there. Blue states, New Mexico is one of the highest, which is in the Southwest, right? Mm-hmm. New Mexico is one of the highest rates of drug use in the country. Apparently, they like drug addiction there. Apparently. But it really, the problems with states like that have more to do with the conservatives than it does the liberals. It's because the Republican Party hasn't done, and I will punch the Republican Party over this, they have failed, abjectly failed,
it's true,
to communicate, to advocate, to be on the ground, to run a credible push and campaign, overall campaign
maybe they don't
against the
exist,
left.
the Republicans over there.
No,
maybe they just wear
like,
the Republican title, but actually they work for the other side because they think more like the blue ones, like the red.
That's the case in Washington State. I mean, there's some great, and Oregon, by the way, and California. A lot of very liberal Republicans are trying to do what they can to get along. That's what they say, and try to work with the left. But that's the thing about the left, Eva, is that the left doesn't want to work with the right because they don't have to.
They don't have to.
They don't have to, And so in places like that, if you're going to be a candidate in a deep blue state, then you need to, which is different than a purple state. Different strat, different. I'm talking about a blue state. Mm-hmm. In a blue state, you have to, if you're going to be a conservative, run a blue state, you've got to look for your opportunities to run at a lower level to find an opportunity where it's winnable, mm-hmm. and go win there, mm-hmm. and then try to build on those wins to make inroads.
That's what they say, the
over
roots.
Time. Yes. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
grassroots. Yeah,
grassroots.
But that's for another episode. But that's,
yeah. Now, talk to us about the benchmark, like the Dark Horse, BRP, and Cook PVI. How do they help in determining the winnability of a race? How
so these
do you
are
do it?
So that's a good question, and this is something that is a little bit on the technical side, but it's important that the viewers understand this stuff. So I'm just going to use, this is not for lower level races. This is for congressional races, right? Congressional, senatorial, these are federal races, right? Mm-hmm. So you have something called the Cook PVI. You can Google it, right? Cook PVI. And so what the Cook PVI says, PVI stands for Partisan Voter Index. And what it says is it categorizes how Democrat or Democratic or how Republican, based on party, a specific congressional district is. So if you have a congressional district that is like D, Democrat, D +2, then what that means is that congressional district voted 2 points higher than the national average in the last presidential election. So, for example, if the nation as a whole voted 51% for the for the Democrat, and this is a D +2 district, then that means they vote typically 53% Democrat to 47% Republican. Does that make sense? And so if you get much past a D+2, a D+3, the district becomes almost impossible to win. Okay. If you get past an R+2 and R+3, it becomes very difficult for the Democrats to win. And so there's this space between R+3 and D+3 where you have races that are winnable. Now, the dark horse VRP stands for voter registration parity. So what it says is how many Republicans are there, or how many Democrats are there registered per Republican. So if you have a parity of 1-to-1, that means that for every one Republican, there's one Democrat. So that's a winnable race because it's fair. But let's say you have 2 Democrats and 1 Republican. Well, the Democrats could turn out half of their base, and you would have to turn out 100% of your base, and you would still probably lose. Like, it becomes absolutely impossible for you to win. And so the numbers have to make sense. And so in the book, and I don't want to really get a whole, because it's kind of convoluted. I explain it in the book, chapter 2. It's great. It helps you to really understand and gauge, is this race even winnable?
So I want to ask you, I'm sorry, I have to cut you here. In order to understand this, you know, I'm not very good with numbers and things like that. I just forget what the numbers you said. But this is the thing. You are good in this. You close your eye. You in a blink, you get numbers. Bing, boom, bang. I know because I know you, right? This help to you because you got an economy background studies. That's why it's easy for you to talk about this and understand this number right away. Like super fast. Do you suggest the people to have a a minimum knowledge about economy or numbers or this? Because sometimes candidates, that's why you're a consultant. That's why you're not a candidate, because sometimes candidates, they are good as a public servant. So I don't like to, in Spanish is that what we say, servidor público. Sounds like a public servant or service or
should
whatever.
Be public service.
That's what we call. And sometimes, of course, they are not the best economists of the world, but they know administration, they know other things, so they hire a good economy in order to support them as a consultant in this or that or that. But when a candidate read all these this part, it's not hard to understand. Of course, if you are teaching me in deep this, I will understand. So the candidates really have to make homework. They really have to understand this. They really have to. It's not just go around, take pictures with the people and shake hands, right? It's a little bit more.
It's not taking pictures with your thumb up. That isn't campaigning. What we're talking about now, everything that you do before the campaign, before the thumbs up pictures, all of this is campaigning.
You're working with your client. You're working with the guys, teaching these strategies, that, then, blah, blah. Okay, so that's why when they go sometimes to get the pictures, I see them tired. Like, probably. Oh my God, tired, and but tired in you see your candidates, because I know you don't allow them to look tired either. Because you're very, very, very tough with your people. Like you have to be
you have to smile. So you have to be on
shake it. And I see sometimes your candidates eating in the running, and but well, that's the dynamic of a campaign. They have to study. They have to be ready for the pictures. They have to have patience, and sometimes they have to sleep in a trailer.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
It's very interesting that. So it is when we get the book and when we go to this part of the book, you explain that much better in order to candidates and consultants.
I give examples. I show how all the math works and how you can replicate